Hey everybody, Kimberly here, and I'm really excited to share with you Finspan, really an overview of the game, what it offers players, and what kind of gaming group I think that Finspan fits the best. This is the third in the Span series. First came Wingspan, big ol' hit. That was about 2019, and then skip ahead about 5 years to last year, we get Wyrmspan as a new standalone with the world of dragons as opposed to birds, and now we get fish in Finspan 2025. I think that these games work so well. If you want to check out my very specific comparison and contrast between Wingspan and Wyrmspan, I've got a whole video dedicated to Wyrmspan alone and what I think of it compared to the original. This one's going to be more focused on Finspan. So the first thing I want to say is that this is a shorter amount of time. You are going to be spending less time here, same amount of players, 1 to 5. All 3 games play 1 to 5. Has the solo variant, which is great if you want to play by yourself, because these are really very autonomous games in the sense that players have their own player field. They're gathering their type of animal. In this case, it's going to be fish, documenting that in their own player board space, and just navigating the basic resources that are in the game. So less player interaction here than ever before, actually. That's going to be one of my, this is really what makes Finspan a little bit different. So it's shorter, it's less complex. BGG says it's about a 2.18 complexity out of 5. Meanwhile, Wingspan goes up to about 247. And then Wyrmspan has the highest complexity at 278, so 2.78 out of 5, and it's definitely going to be the longest with that range of time, 90 minutes. Wingspan says about 40 to 70, and then Finspan says 45 to 60. So it's just, in my opinion, that much shorter than Wingspan. So that's kind of like this overall take at the time, the complexity, and both Wingspan and Finspan say 10 plus for ages. Meanwhile, Wyrmspan says 14 plus. So you're going to need a higher age for that higher complexity. So let's take a look at what Finspan does and why it's scaling down on the Wingspan universe and that kind of mechanic of drawing cards and then building up your area so that you can essentially have that engine building growth, which is such a delightful thing. So what I've got for you out here is just 1 player board. Notice how tall it is. This is going to be the fold or the crease so that it fits in the square box, but this is going to be a vertical board, and your cards are going to go like this. They're going to go horizontal. So you're looking at those fish in landscape. Actually, I got to place this fish up here. Already, I can't even show you without following the rules because these cards have a very specific place, perhaps, that they need to go. They are going to be going up here, kind of where it's a little bit more shallow. You'll see that there are 3 of those spaces in each of the locations. You've got the fins, the flippers. They're all fins and flippers. These guys are blue. These guys are purple, and these guys are green, and you'll see that they all have a different color swatch. That's really easy to tell if you have any colorblind restrictions. So there's the blue, the purple has a different design, and the green has another. That's important. But this is going to be the sun. You'll see the sun matching the sun. This is going to be kind of like that middle area where it's not up too high in the ocean, not down in the down deeps. But then down in the down deeps, you see there's kind of like this moon, this blue crescent moon down here. You'll also see the colors. So these are going to be the start cards that players get 2 of. And the start cards have this nice teal background. You shuffle them up, and then you will deal each player 2. So these are going to be the 2 that I am dealt right now. I've got the barrel eye, and he needs to go in the green column and needs to be lower down. Definitely doesn't want to be seen up at that top sunny area. And up here in the corner is what you have to pay to put them into your player area. This is going to be the victory points that you earn at the end of the game. This is the fin type because fish in this game can eat other fish, but they have to eat fish smaller than they are. So there's this centimeters, and it really, really matters about the size. There's also small, medium, and large, and there's going to be some symbols that do that as well. And then this is going to be the trigger on the side. It's either when activated, or sorry, when played, if activated, and then at the end of the game. Here's another one. This is my orange roughie. My orange roughie costs 2 cards to play, can be played again, not in the top zone, but in either of the other 2 zones, worth 1 victory point, has a bigger fin, and then when you play it, you're going to receive 4 cards back into your hand, 3 from the top of the deck and 1 from your personal discard pile. And that's one thing that's really interesting about this game, is that players have their own closed circuit of cards, essentially. They will keep their cards face up. This is not just for display for you to see. This is how you play the game. You will play your 2 face-up start cards, draw 3 from the top of the deck, and then keep your cards face up to the left of your player board. If you ever have a discard pile, you put your discard pile to the side and you essentially tilt it 90 degrees, and so this is going to be your discard pile. So that's it, and if you ever need to draw from your discard pile, it's going to show that little fish bones. And then you have this massive deck. I mean, just like all the other games, you've got these amazing, amazing, unique, beautiful, detailed, fascinating fish cards that I just think is kind of the star of all 3 of these games. I adore the dragons in Wyrmspan. I love the fish in Wingspan, and the birds, and all the expansions that have come out for Wingspan since, because it was the first, it was the OG, and it has a lot of other types of birds that have come out in those expansions, and then the fish in Finspan. This is the achievements that at the end of each week, which there are 4 of, players will all evaluate. There is no pecking order. There is no beating out other players. There is the full chance to win victory points for these particular goals. So when week 1 is done, it's because all players have, in turn order, played all 6 of their workers. So there are going to be 4 rounds with 6 worker placements, which means you get 24 turns in the game. That's it. That's all you get. You're going to keep your little workers up here. And even better, on your turn, you have a choice of 2 things. You will either play here and you will put a fish from your open hand into one of your player areas that is legal, paying any required costs, gaining any benefits. And that's one of your actions. That's one of the possibilities. Or you place one of your workers in one of the dive zones. And when you place in the dive zone, you are going to dive and you're going to start going down. You're just going to dive down. Now you get this bonus in the brown space of each of these 3 sections as long as you have a fish in that column and that section. So Catalina Goby, Showy Bristlemouth, and Glasshead Grenadier is going to, those are printed on your player board. Everybody starts with 3 basic teeny tiny little fish. These are 1 centimeter, 3 centimeters, 9 centimeters. They're not too fancy. They don't really have too much going on, but they start you off with something. And that's what every player board's going to have. So if I come up here and I'm going to activate this green dive zone, I'm going to be able to hatch, which is the bonus here. This is kind of like the hatch column. This is where you get your eggs. So if you'll see here on the tiles, these are double-sided. So this is going to be gaining an egg, and you're going to place an egg on one of your fish. You can't place an egg just in the ocean somewhere. On the back side, you're going to see here's the little fish. This is hatching it into a little guy. And if 3 of these little guys ever show up in the same space, they turn into a school of fish, and school of fish are going to earn you 6 points at the end of the game. And school of fish are really, really good. So when you take 3, they're just, essentially these little guys are 1 point each, but with getting 3 together by mobilizing them and moving them, which is this symbol right down here, you are going to then create schools of fish. Players start off with a couple resources as well, but this is it. There's these basic resources. You have goals at the end of the week. You have cards in your hand that you are playing out into this display, your personal board, and you only have 6 of these little workers to do so. Now, the cool thing about diving, I just want to say one last thing, is you come all the way down, you could be playing into these activated spaces. So if it ever says if activated, that's because you're diving and you're activating that particular fish. You are going to gain the bonus that is the if activated. When played is when you play the card down, and of course at the end of the game is at the end of the game. But if you dive all the way down in any column, if it's the first worker placement that you've done for that particular dive column, you gain the bonus at the bottom. And so there is a gain a card from your discard pile, essentially hatch an egg, or make a movement is the bottom one down here. So we did this first one, we go all the way down and it covers it up. So if you dive again in that column, which is a really good column for you, perhaps because you have a lot of fish there, you don't get that last bonus. It's really for the first time you do it. And part of the replayability, of course, is the fact that there are so many fish cards, but also there are different achievements. So let's say you want to play with some that are not just printed on the board for gaining eggs or young, rows of fish going across this way, gaining schools of fish, and then doing your end of game scoring. Maybe you want to, every if activated card you have is going to gain you 2 victory points. Remember, that's always your victory points. And this is going to go in the space of the number that's listed here, which just reminds you, you're not allowed to play this except for on the one that matches, and it's very obviously going to match or not. So things are just so easy. So instead of eggs or young, what about those small fish? Small fish are a little bit easier to build, and I have a handful of them. That'd be really great for me to score 2 points for each small fish. That goes over on week 1, and guess what? Yeah, these do flip over. So you're gonna have different things on different places. So let's find one that is a 2 again. So these are going to be tags. All of your fish are going to have some kind of symbol, or maybe not, but they might have this image for each of these, which just kind of describes what kind of fish they are. So for each of these tags, you're going to receive 1 victory point. Let's put this instead on the rows of fish matching. It is going to be evaluated at week 2. So there's a lot of these double-sided. Who knows, you could just shuffle them up, grab some, and then replace those. So it's always replayable. Here are a couple of those symbols. So I got this red lionfish here that has that symbol that was listed right there on the tag. This also means that that fish is particularly carnivorous. So that symbol might come into play with other cards that say for this symbol you might get something. This is a really cool activation, by the way. When you play this card down, you're allowed to take a fish from your hand and then play them into any sun area, and you don't have to pay the cost. So this is just, it's a little cheapy guy, right? It's a little bitty guy, but it has a nice bonus, so you can't forget about that. And then here's that other symbol right there. You're going to see this guy right there. So they're going to have these symbols. Now this is the one I was talking about when I mentioned that fish eat fish. This requires that you eat a fish. This card needs to eat someone who is smaller than 44 centimeters in order to be played. And you have to pay a young from your board. But look at that, 7 victory points. And when you play it, you get a card from the top of the deck. You get a card from your discard pile, and you get to mobilize a young or a school of fish, 1 space orthogonally. These cards are amazing. They are just the coolest, and you're looking for a variety of things as you play, but really, you've got your own player area where you circulate through your discard pile, bringing it back into your hand, and then paying cards from your hand to your discard pile to build other fish, to put them out. And you're slowly just creeping into that massive deck, which means, very replayable. You've got different achievements. You also have different cards to play with. And it's just really fun. So this game is for, I would say, entry-level gamers and just a lighter game night. It's really nice. I enjoy it quite a bit. I will say that I have some quibbles with these tokens. I think that these school of fish, the young and the eggs, are kind of garish. They don't seem to look like and or match the beauty of these fishes. I mean, the cards and the artwork of these fish are really nice. And it just has that Wingspan and that Wyrmspan feel, and I'm just loving looking at these fish. And then I look at these tiles and I kind of go, ugh. It kind of makes me go, ugh. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of that at all, but I have to get over it because I think this game is so easy and it's easy to teach and it's really easy to play. While you alternate turns, where I take a turn and then you go next, you go next, you go next, you pass the first token, player token, to the left at the end so that the next week somebody else starts. But you are simply playing in your own space. You do not have any interaction with players aside from giving them bonuses. And that's another really, really cool thing. There's going to be a symbol on cards that say, whenever you play this, it is going to affect everybody else at the table. For example, this snipe eel. It says, if activated, all players essentially make an egg. Oh, fantastic. So what you do on your turn, if you go diving and you've got the snipe eel in your area, you tell everybody else, hey, everybody else, you can lay an egg. And then people just lay an egg, and you do as well. You can, they don't have to, they can, you don't have to, but you have to announce it to everybody. So on your turn, you're giving other players something that's really cool. And everybody else at the table is just like, yay, thanks, that's really nice. Here's another one. This is the Paralaparis, I assume. If activated, all players. So you're going to see all players. You're also going to see the symbol of the multiplayer down here to remind you to say, draw a card from the top of the deck. Wonderful, wonderful. And then this one, this great white shark, when played, all players. So this one doesn't have to be activated. It's when you play it. It says here, put an egg down on each of your super, super carnivorous ones. They're predatory. They're pretty dangerous. And if you have those, I've got two tooths out here. My red lionfish and my Ellsman's whipnose both have that tooth symbol. So I would, if I had them out in my player area, get to place an egg down on each of those cards. I mean, it's just really, really cool. So the only way you influence each other is by giving people things. And I really, really like that. It also comes into your strategy, how you're doing things and what you're playing. Because quite often those cards that say give players other things in addition to you are really beneficial to you. So you want to play them, and then everybody at the game, at the table, is just kind of like in this kind of lifted positive space. And because you are not competing for hierarchy or for points or pecking order for your achievements, everybody can achieve what they have accomplished in their player area. Really ups the positivity here too. So 45 minutes to 60 minutes for a game. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's really as long as it takes to play this, and to teach it is quite fast. So the one that I probably am going to play the most often might be Finspan at this point. I still really like Wyrmspan. I mean, I really like it. And so if I'm with players who have played it before and I really want to dive into something a little bit more juicy, I'm going to play Wyrmspan. But Finspan is the one I'm going to take to game nights, and again, I'm going to teach to new players, especially if they have not experienced the Span universe. So, lots of love here. I think Finspan's box is just a little bit empty too. There's a nice tray that you get that you can put things in, but it doesn't even it doesn't even have space for every bit. So then there's like just some loose bags, and there's like a whole section that's just empty. Because there's not as much to this game as there is to the other games, and so they wanted the size to be the same for the box, but the components in the gameplay is just a little bit lighter. So with those critiques, which are very small, I would say, overall this has a nice table appeal, a nice play, and I really like the nice touches that usually Stonemaier does, which is include these kind of like cheat sheet cards, these, ability iconographies, understanding what the words mean, understanding what your actions are, and then they give this great fish a card anatomy that explains how you're supposed to understand cards. But once you do, and like I ran you through a couple of my start cards, you got the hang of it. You understand what these icons mean, and you understand how to play them and how to gain benefits from them. So just some really lovely features here, well made, and again, another beautiful game about, this case, fish. So check out Finspan if this sounds like your kind of game. it's definitely my kind of game, and is probably going to be a little bit more common on the table than the other spans. So that's going to be it for me this time. I will see you later, folks. Bye!